Hey everyone, welcome back to another deep dive. You ready to get our learn on today?
Always ready to dive into some fascinating research.
Okay, so today we're cracking open a pretty thought-provoking academic paper.
Ooh, sounds intriguing.
Yeah, it's called How Marketing Has Shaped Societal Norms.
Yeah.
And it's going to make us rethink a lot of things we take for granted.
I'm all ears. Let's hear it.
All right, so buckle up, because we're about to go on a journey through the subtle ways marketing has shaped everything, like everything. From gender roles to beauty standards, holiday traditions, even the American dream.
That's a pretty wide range. I mean, how does marketing affect stuff like the American dream?
Well, you'd be surprised. It's all connected. We're talking about how those seemingly natural or ingrained societal norms often have their roots in some pretty clever marketing campaigns. It's not just about selling products.
Right. It's about shaping culture itself.
Exactly. And we're going to unpack how they do it often without us even realizing it.
Sounds like a deep dive indeed.
All right, let's jump right in with something I bet most of us have never even questioned. Gender roles.
Okay, shoot.
Think about it. Why do we automatically dress baby girls in pink and boys in blue?
It does seem kind of instinctual, doesn't it? Like, it's just natural.
Right. But get this. This color divide is actually a relatively recent invention.
Wait, really? I always thought pink was for girls, like always.
Well, before the 1940s, baby clothes were mostly gender neutral, often just practical whites that could be easily bleached.
Huh. So, if my grandma, who insisted pink was for girls, is wrong, what happened? When did it change?
So the shift towards pink for girls and blue for boys really took off in the mid-20th century. And you guessed it, marketing played a big role.
I was about to say it has to be marketing.
Right, so post-World War II, there was a huge economic boom. And retailers were like, let's capitalize on this.
Makes sense. I mean, more money means more spending.
Exactly. But instead of just selling more baby clothes in general, they realized they could basically double their market.
How so?
By pushing gender-specific consumption.
Ah, I see. So instead of passing clothes down between siblings, now families needed to buy new items, specifically for their pink daughter and their blue son.
Bingo. It was marketing genius.
Really? It's kind of unsettling when you think about it. Like, a tradition that feels so deeply rooted is really just about selling more baby clothes.
I know, right? It's both fascinating and a little disturbing.
So what other examples of this kind of gendered marketing are there?
Think about toys. It's everywhere. Action figures and construction sets for boys, dolls, and play kitchens for girls.
It's like they're shaping children's interests and aspirations from a young age.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff. And it doesn't stop in childhood either.
You're saying this continues into adulthood?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about the beauty industry. Makeup and skincare, for example. Historically, those were used by both genders.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, ancient Egyptians. Romans, even men in the 18th century wore makeup.
Huh. Oh, true.
But then in the 20th century, companies like Maybelline and Max Factor came along and started pushing makeup as essential for female beauty and social success.
It's like they were saying you're not a proper woman unless you wear lipstick.
Exactly. They tapped into societal expectations and then just reinforced them through all this advertising.
And of course, Hollywood glamour played a role too. Think about iconic figures like Marilyn Monroe. That image was used to sell the idea that makeup was key to femininity and allure.
Absolutely. But now we're seeing a shift back towards men using grooming products.
Yeah, it's interesting how that's become more acceptable.
So is marketing finally changing its tune? Have they decided men can wear makeup too?
It's more nuanced than that. What we're seeing is a rebranding rather than a complete reversal.
What do you mean?
Instead of calling it makeup, it's men's grooming with masculine packaging and language. That way they avoid anything remotely feminine.
Ah, clever. So they're tapping into a new market without alienating their existing customer base.
Exactly. It's marketing adapting to evolving social norms while still aiming to sell products.
It's like they realized there's a whole untapped market for men's cosmetics. But they had to reframe the message.
Precisely. And it's not just the language that's changing. Think about those ads from the mid-20th century.
Oh yeah, the ones with the smiling housewives and the men in suits.
They often depicted women solely as homemakers, confined to the domestic sphere, while men were the breadwinners out there achieving great things.
It's crazy how much advertising has changed over the decades, at least on the surface.
It has. And those old ads really highlight how marketing both reflects and perpetuates the values of its time.
Those slogans, though, like, the chef does everything but cook, that's what wives are for, or show her it's a man's world to sell ties. I mean, those are hilarious now.
Hilarious, but also kind of disturbing when you think about the message they were sending.
For sure. But thankfully, things have moved on at least a bit. Today, we see campaigns like Dove's Real Beauty or Axe's Find Your Magic
Right.
to seem to be trying to be more inclusive and challenge those old stereotypes.
It's definitely a shift, and it reflects a growing awareness that consumers are demanding more authenticity and diversity from brands. They're calling out those outdated gender stereotypes and expecting companies to reflect the realities of modern society.
Yeah. It's encouraging to see that marketing can at times be a force for positive change, even if it's ultimately driven by profits.
Agreed. But let's move on to another fascinating area where marketing has exerted its influence. Consumer habits.
Okay, I'm ready. What have you got?
Are you ready to hear about diamonds?
Diamonds. Oh boy. Always a sparkly topic.
It's a classic example of marketing brilliance. This is the tale of how a luxury item was transformed into a cultural necessity.
Wait, so you're saying diamond engagement rings weren't always the norm?
You got it. Yeah.
Before the 20th century, they were a luxury item, not a symbol of everlasting love like they are today.
Really? It's hard to imagine a world where a diamond ring isn't a near requirement for a marriage proposal.
Right. And that's where De Beers, the diamond company, comes in.
Yeah.
Their A Diamond is Forever campaign launched in 1947 completely transformed how we view diamonds.
Okay, but how did they just come up with a catchy slogan? It's more than that, right?
It was much more. They strategically linked diamonds to the concept of eternal love, suggesting that the size and quality of the diamond was a direct reflection of a man's devotion and the depth of his love.
Wow, that's pretty clever.
And get this, they even popularized the idea that a man should spend 2 months' salary on an engagement ring.
2 months' salary. Seriously, is that like a real thing, or do they just make that up?
It was a marketing creation, pure and simple. A brilliant tactic to drive up demand and increase perceived value.
And it worked. People still follow that rule today.
It did. They also carefully controlled the supply of diamonds, creating artificial scarcity to further inflate prices.
So they convinced us that diamonds were not only rare and valuable, but also essential for proving our love and commitment. That's kind of manipulative, don't you think?
It's a powerful demonstration of how marketing can shape not just our buying habits, but our cultural values and expectations.
Especially around something as emotionally charged as love and marriage. Exactly. It makes you wonder what other traditions or cultural norms might have their roots in clever marketing.
Right. Like we just accept them as part of life. But maybe they're not so natural after all.
Maybe not. Let's shift gears from romance to something a bit more mundane, but equally fascinating. Breakfast. What do you usually have in the mornings?
Well, honestly, it's usually a bowl of cereal. Quick and easy, I can eat it on the go. Plus, I always thought it was healthy.
And that right there is a perfect example of how marketing has shaped what we consider a normal breakfast. A seemingly harmless choice with a fascinating history.
Really? What did people eat before cereal took over the world? Were pancakes always a thing?
Think back to the 19th century and earlier, people ate hearty breakfasts, eggs, bacon, sausage, porridge, leftovers from dinner.
Wow, that's quite a change from a bowl of flakes.
It was all about a filling, often savory meal to fuel a long day of work.
Okay, that sounds delicious, but definitely not as quick and easy as pouring a bowl of cereal. I can see how modern life might have led to the shift, but where does marketing come in?
That's where cereal companies like Kellogg's and Post saw their opportunity. They started marketing cereal as a healthy, modern, and convenient alternative to those heavier, more traditional breakfasts.
Interesting. So were they saying our grandparents' breakfasts were bad for them?
They emphasized the idea that greasy, heavy food would make you sluggish and unproductive, while cereal was light, nutritious, and provided sustained energy for a busy modern lifestyle.
I see. And they were the ones who popularized the saying, breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
Bingo! Another brilliant marketing tactic to boost sales.
Clever. But is that even true? Is breakfast really the most important meal?
Well, the concept that breakfast is important is generally accepted, but it was certainly heavily promoted by cereal companies to get people to buy their product.
And let's be honest, their marketing was wildly successful. By the mid-20th century, cereal had become the breakfast of choice for millions, thanks to clever marketing and changing cultural norms. I guess that explains why I still reach for that box of cereal every morning, even though I sometimes crave something a little more substantial, like it's programmed into my brain.
It really makes you wonder what other seemingly ingrained habits and preferences have been subtly shaped by marketing over the years.
Right. We think we're making free choices, but maybe those choices aren't as free as we think. Food for thought indeed. And we'll explore even more examples of that in the next part of our deep dive. We'll uncover how marketing has shaped holiday traditions, influenced our perceptions of beauty, and even played a role in shaping the American dream.
Stay tuned.
All right, so let's shift gears now and explore how marketing has influenced our holiday traditions. You know, we've talked about how certain industries capitalize on holidays.
Yeah. For sure. Like, stores are decked out in holiday decor way too early, and those ads for gifts and all that festive stuff, it's everywhere. But the influence goes even deeper than just pushing sales around Christmas or Valentine's Day.
Really? How so?
Well, let's take the image of Santa Claus, for example. That jolly, red-suited, white-bearded guy we all know and love, he wasn't always so standardized.
Wait, are you saying Coca-Cola invented Santa? I've heard that, but is it true?
Not exactly. The figure of Santa has been around for centuries.
Okay, so he's been around, but he didn't always look like that.
Right, he's drawn inspiration from figures like St. Nicholas and European folklore, but it was Coca-Cola's advertising in the 1930s that really solidified that modern image we see everywhere today.
Interesting, so they gave him a makeover. But why would a beverage company care so much about Santa's image?
Those iconic ads showing Santa sipping a Coke not only made their product part of the holiday tradition, but it also created this warm, familiar, and totally marketable image of Santa that people loved.
Wow, so even our vision of Santa has been shaped by marketing. It's kind of mind-blowing.
It shows how even something that feels so pure and nostalgic can be influenced by marketing.
What other holiday traditions have been shaped this way?
Well, we can't forget about Black Friday. You know how it's become this massive shopping event?
Oh yeah, Black Friday. It's like a sport now. People camp out for deals.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It wasn't always a tradition, though. Retailers strategically turned it into the shopping event of the year.
How did they do that?
They created this sense of urgency with those limited time offers and doorbuster deals.
Yeah.
You know, those promises of deep discounts.
Yeah, it's like they tap into our primal urge to get a bargain.
Exactly. And it works. People go crazy for those deals. They brave the crowds and everything just to save a few bucks.
It's wild when you think about it.
It really shows the power of marketing to not only capitalize on existing events, but to create new rituals and habits, even ones centered around consumerism.
Yeah, they basically created a self-fulfilling prophecy.
They told us Black Friday was the start of holiday shopping, so we showed up ready to spend.
Which just reinforces the cycle.
And then there's Valentine's Day and Mother's Day. These holidays were initially about love and appreciation.
Yeah, but they become super commercialized.
I mean, do you ever feel pressured to buy flowers and chocolates for Valentine's Day?
Totally. Like, I feel obligated.
Yeah.
Am I just a sucker for marketing?
It's not just you. Industries have capitalized on these emotional occasions. They've turned them into major commercial events.
Yeah, like greeting cards. They're a big part of Valentine's Day.
Right. The greeting card industry pushed Valentine's Day cards as like the essential way to express love.
That makes sense. But what about all the other stuff? Like chocolates and flowers?
Other industries jumped on board. They linked chocolate with romance, red roses with passion, and of course diamonds with enduring love.
So basically they created a formula for how to properly celebrate these holidays.
Right, and that formula always involves buying stuff.
It's both clever and kind of manipulative.
It is. It shows how marketing can tap into existing emotions and rituals and then attach specific products to them.
Okay, let's move on to beauty standards. I'm curious how marketing has shaped what's considered beautiful over the years.
This is where things get really interesting. Beauty standards are like fashion trends constantly evolving, and marketing has played a huge role in shaping what's considered attractive in each era.
So let's go back in time. What was considered beautiful in the 1920s?
The 1920s was all about the flapper.
The flapper.
Yeah.
Those were rebellious times.
The flapper was the slim, boyish figure with short hair. You know, that look that defied the traditional curvy ideal.
Right. It was a whole new beauty standard. So how did that happen?
It was partly a cultural shift, but marketing played a key role in promoting this new look.
Like,
Think about cigarette ads, makeup brands, and even Hollywood. They all jumped on the flapper trend.
cigarette companies, really?
Yeah, they targeted women with ads that promoted smoking as a way to stay slim, sophisticated, and rebellious.
Wow. So smoking was tied to beauty standards back then.
It shows how any trend, even a harmful one, can be exploited for profit if it's perceived as desirable.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah.
Things changed in the 1950s, right?
Yeah, there was a complete reversal. The
Ah.
curvy, ultra-feminine ideal came back.
The Marilyn Monroe era. Everyone wanted to be a blonde bombshell with curves.
And her image was used to promote everything from weight gain supplements to corsetry to glamorous makeup.
What gain supplements? That's so different from today's obsession with thinness.
It shows how fluid and subjective these beauty standards are. They reflect the cultural anxieties and aspirations of the time.
And marketing is always there, ready to capitalize on those anxieties.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're always offering solutions that promise to help us achieve the ever-changing ideal.
Okay, so what happened after the 50s? Did we stay curvy or did the pendulum swing back?
It swung back towards thinness. By the 1990s, supermodel culture was in full swing.
The Kate Moss era?
Extreme thinness became the dominant beauty standard, heavily promoted in fashion magazines and ad campaigns.
Yeah, the waif look, it was everywhere. Like, you couldn't be beautiful unless you were super thin.
And fashion brands like Calvin Klein played a big role in this. They featured extremely thin models in their campaigns, creating these aspirational images.
That were often unrealistic for most women.
And it wasn't just clothes. They were selling a lifestyle, an ideal that was often unattainable.
It's crazy how much influence those campaigns had on people's self-image.
It's the dark side of marketing. These images, often created for profit, had a very real and harmful impact.
Thankfully, we're seeing a shift now towards body positivity and inclusivity. Are brands finally catching up?
It's a step in the right direction, but there's still a long way to go. Campaigns like Dove's Real Beauty and Aerie's Airy Real have been pushing for a wider range of body types.
It's encouraging to see more diversity in advertising. But what about social media? It feels like beauty standards are evolving even faster now.
Social media has completely changed the game, especially Instagram. It's become the main platform for beauty marketing.
Yeah, it's like trends go viral overnight.
It creates a constant pressure to keep up with the latest look, the latest product, the latest procedure.
It's exhausting keeping up with all the trends.
Yeah.
So is social media a good or bad thing for beauty standards?
It's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's given a voice to more diverse beauty influencers. We're seeing a wider range of people representing beauty.
So it's not just one narrow standard anymore.
But on the other hand, social media has also led to this surge in filters and photo editing.
Yeah, which creates even more unrealistic expectations.
It's easy to forget those perfect selfies are often heavily edited.
It's the whole Instagram face thing. Everyone starts to look the same. Big lips, tiny nose, perfectly smooth skin.
And it's not just harmless fun anymore. These filters are influencing real-life beauty trends.
People are trying to achieve that filtered perfection in the real world, which often means going to extreme lengths.
It's scary how those digital enhancements are blurring the lines between beauty and deception.
So what can be done? Is there a way to counteract this trend?
There's a growing movement towards transparency and authenticity. Some platforms are requiring influencers to disclose when they use filters.
And there are campaigns encouraging people to embrace their unfiltered selves.
It's a good start, but we still have a long way to go.
Hopefully we'll see a more balanced approach to beauty in the future, one that celebrates both natural beauty and individuality.
That would be ideal. Now, for the last part of this section, let's talk about how marketing has shaped our broader cultural expectations, especially around the American dream.
Okay, the American dream. You mean the idea that hard work and determination can lead to success?
Right. How does marketing tie into something as aspirational as that?
It's a good question.
Well, marketing has played a big role in shaping our understanding of the American dream, especially after World War II.
Okay, the 1950s, the era of suburban bliss and happy families.
That image is still so powerful, even though the reality was more complicated.
Yeah, it was the image that was being sold, and marketing was the driving force.
They promoted the idea that buying a house, owning a car, and filling it with appliances were essential for achieving the American dream.
So they basically equated material possessions with happiness and success.
It was a very persuasive message, and it resonated with millions of Americans.
I mean, after the war, people wanted stability and comfort.
And advertisers capitalized on that. They told people that buying a home wasn't just a financial decision, but a patriotic duty.
It's like they redefined the American dream as a consumerist dream.
And that message is still around today. We're still bombarded with messages telling us to buy the latest gadgets and the trendiest clothes.
So even though we might be more aware of marketing tactics, we're still being influenced by them.
Absolutely. And that's why it's important to be critical consumers and examine how marketing shapes our values and desires.
We need to ask ourselves what truly matters, and if those values align with the messages we're being sold.
It's something to think about. And we'll explore even more of these ideas in the final part of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive, and we've covered a lot of ground already. You know, gender roles, holidays, beauty standards, the American dream.
It's amazing how much marketing influences our lives, right? It's everywhere.
It really is.
Yeah.
But there's one more piece of the puzzle we need to talk about. Money and spending habits.
Oh boy, debt. That's a topic that always makes people a little uncomfortable.
Right. It's not exactly the most fun thing to think about, but it's a huge part of modern life, and I'm curious about how we got here.
Yeah, like, was debt always this normal?
Right. Was it always part of the American dream?
Well, it's not a new concept, But how we view debt and how we interact with it has definitely changed over time.
And I'm guessing marketing played a role.
You bet. Before the 1950s, most people operated on a cash-based economy. You know, if you couldn't afford something, you saved up for it.
It sounds simpler.
It was, but then credit cards came along.
And everything changed.
And marketing saw an opportunity and they pounced.
So how do they sell this whole credit card thing?
They marketed it as freedom, convenience, modern sophistication.
I can see the appeal.
Yeah.
Buy now, worry about it later.
Exactly. And slogans like "don't leave home without it" made it seem essential.
Like you weren't a modern person if you didn't have a credit card.
Right. And it shifted our focus from saving and budgeting to spending and instant gratification.
But so basically they encouraged us to buy things we couldn't really afford.
In a nutshell. And that's the risk, right? It's easy to overspend when you're not using cash.
And that risk wasn't really emphasized in those early credit card ads.
Nope. They focused on the positive side, the freedom, the convenience.
And that's how debt became normalized.
It became part of everyday life, and luxury brands and department stores loved it.
Because people could suddenly afford to buy those expensive items.
They made it easier than ever to buy things on credit.
So it was a perfect storm. Credit cards, marketing campaigns, and a culture that was shifting towards spending.
And that culture has only intensified with things like buy now, pay later services.
That BNPL, it's everywhere.
And they often target younger consumers
Who might not have credit cards or are wary of high interest rates.
It's so tempting to split a purchase into those smaller payments.
It feels almost like you're getting away with something. But are you really?
That's what their marketing wants you to think. They downplay the risks and make impulse purchases seem more manageable.
It's like a psychological trick.
It is. They break down a large purchase into smaller chunks, so it doesn't feel like debt.
It's both clever and a bit dangerous.
Right. Because it's easy to get caught in that cycle of debt.
It's a good reminder to be mindful of our spending habits.
And to question those easy payment options.
Because they're not always as good as they seem.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about how marketing has spread Western consumer culture globally.
When I think of Western consumer culture, I think of fast food.
Yeah, it's a prime example. McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, they're everywhere.
You can't escape those golden arches. It's like a symbol of America.
McDonald's has been incredibly successful at creating a global brand.
But how did they do it? Was it just the food?
It was more than that. They used a very strategic marketing approach.
Like how?
They targeted families with Happy Meals and play areas.
Creating a fun and familiar atmosphere?
And they localized their menus to appeal to different cultures.
So the Macarabia in the Middle East or the Makalu Tiki in India?
They blended local flavors with their global brand identity.
Smart. But what about the impact on people's diets?
That's a valid concern. Fast food has contributed to a rise in unhealthy eating habits.
It's not all sunshine and roses when it comes to globalization.
Definitely not.
Okay, let's move on to another aspect of Western consumer culture. Luxury brands.
Those designer labels are everywhere now.
It's not just about the product itself, it's about the status symbol.
Luxury brands have become global status symbols, and marketing is the reason why.
Those fashion shows, the magazine ads, the perfectly curated Instagram posts.
It's all about creating a sense of desire, aspiration, exclusivity.
Like you need that handbag to be part of the in crowd.
And it works, especially in emerging markets where luxury items are seen as a sign of success.
So they've expanded their target audience.
Yeah, there's now a huge market for entry-level luxury.
Like designer sunglasses or perfumes.
Things that are more affordable but still have that luxury branding.
It's like they've created a whole hierarchy of luxury.
Always something more expensive, more desirable to strive for.
It keeps that cycle of consumerism going.
It's been quite a journey exploring how marketing shapes our world.
It's everywhere. From the clothes we wear to the way we think about money.
So what's the takeaway? Should we just reject all marketing?
It's not about rejection. It's about awareness.
Being critical thinkers.
Making conscious choices.
Because marketing is a powerful force. But we don't have to be controlled by it.
Right. We can be more discerning consumers. We can ask questions, challenge assumptions.
And we can choose to support brands that align with our values.
We have more power than we realize.
It's been an eye-opening conversation.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We hope you learned something new and that you'll think a little more critically about the messages you encounter every day.
Because marketing is everywhere, but it doesn't have to control us.
Thanks for listening.